You know that feeling. Scrolling, just endless news, and somehow you feel less informed.
Oh, absolutely. Information overload. It's like you just want someone to cut through it all.
Exactly. Tell you what actually matters.
Well, that's pretty much the idea behind the deep dive. We take a specific set of sources, focus in, and try to pull out what's essential.
Give you that clearer picture without drowning you in data.
Precisely. And today, we're diving into a report. It's quite something.
Yeah, what's it called?
It's titled Beyond Operation Doppelgänger, a capability assessment of the social design agency Psychological Defense Research Institute.
Bit of a mouthful.
Okay, quite the title. So SDA, Social Design Agency, this report digs into them.
Yeah, it gives a rare look inside this organization, the SDA. And according to this assessment, they're deep into what the report calls information influence campaigns.
Information influence. And what kind of material are we working with here? Why is this report so valuable? Well, that's the interesting part. It's not just analysis. We're talking org charts, actual internal communications, strategy documents,
Wow.
even their own, assessments of how well they're doing. It's a real peek behind the curtain.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive.
Let's unpack it. The structure, the methods, the goals of this SDA, all based on what's in this report.
Right. To give you, the listener, a clearer idea of how this whole information game can be played strategically.
Exactly.
All right, let's get into it. Who is the social design agency? What does the inside look like according to this report?
Well, it paints a picture of a surprisingly well-structured operation, different teams, clear roles.
Like a regular company?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
For instance, there's Team I. The report says it's led by an Ilya Gamishais, and they focus on international campaigns.
Okay, so specialized teams, not just selling widgets, though. They're shaping opinion. Is that the idea?
That seems to be the core of it. And the report names names. Sofia Zakharova, described as operational manager.
Operational manager. What does that mean in this context?
Her focus seems to be on efficiency, making sure campaigns run smoothly, get high engagement, things like their CCE and CCU campaigns.
CCE, CCU? What are those?
Comprehensive counter-campaign against Europe and comprehensive counter-campaign against Ukraine.
Gotcha. So she's about metrics, clicks, shares, making sure the message spreads online.
Seems like it, yeah. Then there's Sergei Yurovich Chernikov. He gets a specific mention for TikTok strategies.
TikTok? Makes sense. Huge platform, especially for, reaching younger people.
Definitely. Shows their thinking platform specifically.
Who else? Any higher level connections mentioned?
Yes. And this is where it gets interesting. It points to links right into the Russian government.
Oh.
2 names from the presidential administration, Goltiev Alexei Olegovich and Shamraev Roman Andreevich. They're noted for coordinating with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Okay, so presidential administration, foreign affairs. This isn't some rogue group, then?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
And the connections go higher. Alexei Vyakoslavovich Zarek. He's described as a high-ranking Kremlin official.
And his role?
Shaping political technologists, that's the term used. Basically, people who specialize in influencing politics using various techniques.
How does he do that?
Through a platform called Degoria. And he apparently collaborates with 2 other organizations, ANOIRI and Aeon Dialogue.
ANOIRI, Internet Research Institute. That name rings a bell.
It might. The report says ANOIRI produces Kremlin-aligned content, films, TV series, that kind of thing.
And ANO Dialogue?
They run these regional control centers. Think social listening posts, monitoring public mood, managing communication.
Okay, so we've got a structured agency, key players, links to the Kremlin, and partner organizations producing content and monitoring sentiment. That's the who. How does it all work? How are decisions made?
The report suggests key players meet regularly. Decision-making seems to flow down from Kirienko, a major political figure via his staff in the presidential administration.
So the actual direction for these campaigns, the narratives, the targets, that comes from the top?
That's the implication. The report even cites the FBI's view.
Oh. What do they think?
Their assessment aligns. They see the SDA's work as state-sanctioned, ultimately proved very high up, maybe even Putin himself.
Wow. Okay, that's significant state involvement. What about the strategies themselves? Any specific examples in the report?
Yeah, quite a few. It shows internal discussions where they're, adapting on the fly.
How so?
For instance, there's talk about shifting away from pushing a narrative about a Ukrainian counteroffensive because it wasn't, landing.
So they track effectiveness?
Seems like it. They pivoted instead to highlighting Ukrainian losses and corruption. They figured that would resonate more.
So constantly testing the waters, seeing what sticks.
Exactly. Very pragmatic, almost data-driven in a way. The report mentions one success. They tried to replicate a fake video about child recruitment in the Ukrainian military.
They fabricated a video.
That's what the report indicates.
Mm.
And because it apparently gained some traction, they analyzed why and tried to apply those lessons elsewhere.
That's quite chilling. Create something false, see if it works, then double down.
And what's also fascinating is the alleged direct involvement of officials. Someone called ADK, thought to be Karachev, is shown telling the SDA to create fake content, amplify specific stories about Ukrainian mobilization, casualties.
So not just general direction, but specific content orders coming from the Kremlin.
That's the picture painted here, yeah. And their ambitions aren't small. The report says they explore ways to actually incite conflicts in other countries.
Incite conflicts.
By playing on existing divisions, interethnic, religious, racial, political fault lines. And they plan to use diaspora media outlets to help do it.
Wow, that's moving beyond just shaping opinion into something much more active.
It suggests a very deliberate multi-pronged strategy, potentially destabilizing.
Okay, so we have the strategy. How does that translate into, like, the daily grind? What's the operational workflow?
The report outlines a pretty clear flow. Writer, translator, seeding.
Writer, translator, seeding. Simple enough. So likely written in Russian first.
Probably. Then translated for different targets and seeded, strategically placed online.
And where does this stuff end up?
Telegram seems huge for them. They use channels as aggregators, but also run these networks of geographically targeted microchannels across Europe.
Microchannels.
Yeah.
So small, specific, harder to track maybe.
That could be the idea. And internally, the report shows they recognize needs like they need daily editorial algorithms, shared content, piggy banks, so teams can borrow stuff.
Piggy banks for content.
Yeah, and dedicated units for video editing, meme creation.
Meme creation as a dedicated unit. That says a lot about modern influence, doesn't it?
It really does. They even aim to set up Telegram channels with similar names in multiple languages, like earlier than everyone, well, almost, trying to build a recognizable brand almost.
Branding for disinformation. It's like a dark mirror of marketing.
And building news portals, having comprehensive reporting systems that's listed as important too, infrastructure to push stuff out and track the results.
Who are they trying to reach in the West specifically?
The report mentions targeting specific groups, migrants, anti-vaxxers in places like Germany, the UK, Italy, using Facebook, Twitter.
So identifying potentially receptive audiences within those countries, exploiting existing anxieties.
Looks that way. It's not just a broad blast. It's identifying and engaging specific demographics who might be more open to their messages.
Right. And the report links us back to Operation Doppelgänger.
It does. Mentions that between May and July 2022, the SDA ran a network of fake news sites, the Doppelgänger sites, plus Telegram channels like English Truth, Deutsche Wahrheit.
Truth, right there in the name.
Yep.
Classic tactic. Okay, let's dig into these specific campaigns. The CCU, the one targeting Ukraine, what's the main aim?
Right, the comprehensive counter-campaign against Ukraine. The stated goal, shape public opinion in Ukraine. Get it aligned with Russia's view of the special military operation and how future relations should look.
And calling it a counter-campaign is interesting, isn't it?
It really is. It frames their own work as reactive, a response to Ukrainian narratives. Suggests they felt the need to actively push back.
So what does this CCU involve?
It's comprehensive, like the name says. Constant monitoring of Ukrainian media analysis, trying to suppress anti-Russian stories, and then producing and pushing their own pro-Kremlin content.
Monitor, analyze, suppress, promote. Got it.
And they apparently have 4 main thematic lines guiding all this content, plus tools like monitoring analytical products, something called a meaning-making factory.
A meaning-making factory? What on earth is that?
Sounds like high-level meetings where they craft the overarching narratives, the frameworks for understanding events. It's about actively constructing meaning, not just pushing facts.
That's quite sophisticated, beyond just propaganda into shaping perception itself.
Yeah, and they use research and efficacy evaluation tools, too, always refining.
Any claims about how well it's working?
Well, the report cites SDA claims of billions of audience touchpoints in 2023. Billions. Through native distribution and ads.
Billions. And that's a staggering potential reach. How do they get that kind of engagement?
Some pretty aggressive tactics mentioned. Using bot center specialists, AI-driven automated comment systems.
So flooding comment sections, making it look like there's huge support or debate when it might be artificial.
That's the concern, yeah. Blurring authentic and fake engagement.
Mm.
And they apparently do weekly online surveys, tens of thousands of Ukrainians for formative research.
Polling constantly to fine-tune the message. Wow. Okay, what about this other Ukraine project?
Right, that one's different. It's specifically backing Viktor Medvedchuk's political movement.
Medvedchuk, the pro-Kremlin Ukrainian politician.
That's him. The idea is to present him and his movement as a viable alternative to the current Kiev government.
So promoting a specific political figure aligned with Moscow.
Pretty much. The target audiences are Western and Russian experts, journalists, but also Ukrainians everywhere.
And the narrative.
Position Medvedchuk as a man of peace, show there are other Ukrainian voices besides Zelensky's. Essentially, provide an alternative viewpoint.
What's the SDA's role here?
Creating visuals, delivering content, providing comment support, basically, boosting his ideological work. The report even says they aim to create a whole news agency for him.
A dedicated news agency. Just for him. To counter Zelensky's media monopoly, as they see it.
That was the stated goal, yeah.
Yeah.
A big investment in shaping that specific narrative.
Okay, let's shift to the West. The CCE campaign, targeting the European Parliament elections. How is that different from the Ukraine focus?
It seems more flexible, less about one consistent message, more tied to specific key performance indicators, KPIs.
KPIs, like business goals.
Exactly. For the 2024 EP elections in Germany, for instance, a specific KPI was getting the AfD party's rating up to 20% in polls.
Wow, that's incredibly specific, linking their info ops directly to a desired political outcome for a specific party.
Yeah, very explicit.
What themes were they pushing in Europe to try and achieve goals like that?
It evolved. Things like peace after war, questioning Ukraine's long-term prospects, hitting on the negative impacts of sanctions on Europe, trying to tap into anxieties.
Peace, economic worries. Strong motivators. What about Israel? That seems like an odd target.
The goal there, according to the report, was to try and pull Israel away from the Western anti-Russian consensus.
How?
By focusing on Nazism in Ukraine, drawing parallels between Russia's actions and Israel's security situation. They even use cartoons.
Cartoons. Sometimes simple visuals cut through, don't they? Even with complex or dubious messages.
And they apparently brainstorm graffiti ideas for the Arab-Israeli conflict. Divisive stuff. Looking for any tension point they could exploit.
We need a vision anywhere.
Seems to be part of the playbook. In Germany, amplifying East versus West German divisions, supporting the AfD, sometimes using real news as a hook for their own narratives. Using real news to lend credibility.
Yeah.
Subtle.
But they hit roadblocks too. Facebook temporarily blocking paid political ads in June 2024. That apparently forced them to scramble for workarounds, since they relied on it.
So the platforms can disrupt things, but these groups adapt.
Always adapting. The report mentions other projects too. CIS region, Latvia, the Russian diaspora. Briefly, what were those about?
CIS region aimed at maintaining Russian soft power, but making it look like authentic grassroots opinion, not propaganda.
Okay, the authentic voice angle.
Latvia, project circumstances. Very ambitious.
Yeah.
Try to create conditions for a peaceful social revolution.
How?
By playing up tensions over how Ukrainian refugees were treated compared to Russian citizens there, exploiting local grievances.
Risky and the diaspora.
Information impact project on relocators. 2 goals. Encourage Russians who left to come back, and sow distrust in emigre leaders who might be critical of the Kremlin.
Control the narrative, even outside Russia's borders. And Sweden NATO.
Yeah, an effort to damage Sweden-Turkey relations during Sweden's NATO bid.
Yeah.
They plan to spread a fake story about wreaths at the Swedish consulate.
Did they actually do it?
No evidence it was published, but it shows the intent to interfere in major international diplomacy.
So it's not just country versus country, but manipulating relationships between countries too. All right, let's talk tools. What's in the SDA toolbox, according to this report?
It's a real mix. The report says they blend marketing, PR, espionage tactics, and psyops. Everything from precise, targeted actions to broad, maybe cruder stuff.
A hybrid toolkit, whatever works.
Monitoring is huge for them. Using dashboards like brand analytics, which the report says is kind of similar to Western social listening tools, maybe even based on an old version of TalkWalker.
So using standard marketing tech for, well, non-standard purposes.
Seems like it. They also had this UPulse channel on Telegram, like a curated news feed matching their themes. And then the creative content we talked about.
Right, articles, memes, videos, caricatures. And that creepy augmented reality fakes line.
Yeah, that one stands out. Plus the comments machine.
The bots and AI comments.
Exactly. A big effort to flood platforms, shape discussions, make their views seem more popular or contested than they might be.
We see that everywhere now, don't we?
We do. Targeted ads on Facebook are key too. Big spending estimated there. And they create sleeper regional groups.
Sleeper groups.
Build an audience slowly, seem innocuous, then start injecting the pro-Russian narratives. Patience.
Wow. And regional commenting.
Using bots to drop comments in local Ukrainian community groups online, but with region-specific intros to make them seem local.
That level of localization is intense.
They even do guerrilla actions, creating petitions, organizing protests, offline stuff too.
So online and offline blend.
And chatbots. Using services from companies like Fast Track Masterbot. Bots designed to counter fake narratives, meaning narratives they don't like, and collect user data.
A really comprehensive, evolving toolkit. But the report finds weaknesses too, right? Limitations?
It does. Despite all the data they collect, strategic decisions still seem heavily influenced by the Kremlin hierarchy. Personal preferences, top-down directives, not always pure data.
So potentially prone to the biases of the leadership, not purely rational actors.
That's the suggestion. The report also calls their internal political analysis weak and constrained by ideology. They might not always grasp the nuances of the audiences they target.
If the analysis is off, the strategy might miss the mark, no matter the tools.
Possibly. And finally, the effectiveness of some tactics, like managing influencers, is questioned. They seem to treat them just as distribution channels, not collaborators.
Like billboards, not partners. Yeah, that often doesn't work long term. Okay, so wrapping this up, key takeaways from this deep dive into the SDA.
I think the main thing is seeing the SDA as this complex beast. It uses everything from sophisticated monitoring and AI to just churning out memes and comments, a real mix.
All aimed at specific information goals, hitting different audiences in different ways.
Exactly, and it really is that blend the report talks about.
Yeah.
Advertising techniques, spycraft, information warfare, all rolled into one.
And understanding these methods, these tactics, it's just crucial now, isn't it, for anyone trying to make sense of the information flying around.
Absolutely. Recognizing the playbook is step one in not getting played.
So here's something to think about as we finish. We've dived deep into this report, into the SDA. But how might these techniques, these strategies apply elsewhere, in other contexts, maybe closer to home?
Yeah, that's the real question, isn't it? How do you personally navigate this? How do you tell authentic voices from these kinds of strategic influence campaigns when the lines get so blurry? Definitely something to mull over.